I stand here today on behalf of a hero of freedom and democracy in the People's Republic of China. Liu Xiaobo and his wife, Liu Xia, are the faces of liberty in China. They have sacrificed comfort and normalcy to chart a path towards political liberalization. For that, they have been detained, imprisoned, and abused. In 2008, Liu Xiaobo co-authored Charter 08, a manifesto that shined a light on the Communist Party of China and its totalitarian abuse of power. Though many brave souls signed their names and their fates to that document, Dr. Liu's name was at the very top. For this reason, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. And he also received charges of inciting subversion of state power and an 11-year prison sentence. It is impossible to neglect this stark irony. A man dedicated to nonviolence, imprisoned for promoting peace. Motivating Dr. Liu's tremendous courage and self-sacrifice was a determination to remember what the People's Republic of China desperately wants the world to forget: Tiananmen Square. A poet, author, and political scientist, Dr. Liu was in 1989 a visiting scholar at Columbia University. But when the pro-democracy protests broke out in Beijing in June of that year, he raced back to China to support them. He staged a hunger strike in Tiananmen Square in the midst of the historic student protests and insisted that they would remain nonviolent, even in the faces of the tanks which the Chinese military deployed to smash them. In 1996, the party subjected him to 3 years of, quote, re-education through labor for continuing to question China's one-party system. In 2008, on the eve of the 100-year anniversary of China's first constitution and the 30-year anniversary of Beijing's Democracy Wall movement, Dr. Liu dedicated his work on Charter 08 to the martyrs of Tiananmen Square. Today, 8 years into his unjust imprisonment, Dr. Liu needs our help more than ever. Last month, it was revealed that Dr. Liu has contracted an aggressive, late-stage form of liver cancer. Although the PRC authorities, quote, released him on medical parole, both Liu Xiaobo and Liu Xia linger without freedom. And even worse, Liu Xiaobo is dying. His condition is critical, and we are running out of time to act on his behalf. Although Chinese authorities compelled the Lius to sign an affidavit allegedly attesting to their satisfaction with the medical care they have received in China and their wish to remain there, Liu Xia has communicated to their attorney their desire to spend Liu Xiaobo's final days in America. PRC doctors insist that Dr. Liu was too ill to travel. But medical experts from the US and Germany, one of them being Dr. Joseph Herman of the MD Anderson Cancer Treatment Center of the University of Texas, visited Dr. Liu and attested to the contrary. Issuing a joint statement, they agreed that Dr. Liu, quote, can be safely transported with appropriate medical evacuation care and support. They then issued this stark warning. However, the medical evacuation would have to take place as quickly as possible. The urgency of this situation goes beyond Liu Xiaobo. Liu Xia's livelihood is inextricably linked to the ability of the two of them to leave China. Due to his imprisonment, Liu Xiaobo has been unable to receive his $1.5 million in prize money from the Norwegian Nobel Committee. The holdup of transferring funds is merely routine. a signed form from Dr. Liu, and an open bank account with his name on it. But China has prevented these technical steps from progressing. If Liu Xiaobo dies without receiving this account, Liu Xia will be left destitute with no money. I shudder to think what such a life would hold for the wife of China's boldest political prisoner. Only one man stands between a dying man's wish and his wife's livelihood and freedom: Xi Jinping. Although no one action can undo the turmoil that the Lius have suffered over the past 28 years, it's not too late to do the right thing and to allow this man and his wife to spend their last days together according to their wishes. And it wouldn't be the first time that Xi has made a similar decision. Earlier this year, he agreed, after consultations with the Trump administration, to release an imprisoned Houstonian, Sandy Fan Gillis, who was incarcerated on false charges. Although nothing could bring back the 2 years of separation from her family, she and her family are now reunited, something I spent considerable time urging and encouraging and was grateful to see come to pass. And lest she forget, even Kim Jong-un, the dictator in North Korea, allowed Otto Warmbier, a young American college student from Ohio in the prime of his life, before torture and abuse left him in coma, to return home for his final hours. Surely she can show the same degree of humanity shown by Kim Jong-un. And indeed, towards that end, the bill that I have introduced numerous times to rename the street in front of the Chinese embassy in honor of Liu Xiaobo is an instrument of leverage that can help produce his freedom. In 2015, I came to this floor and asked on 3 separate occasions for unanimous consent to pass my bill to rename the street in front of the Chinese embassy after Liu Xiaobo. Over and over again, sadly, Democratic senators stood up and objected, stymieing the effort. Each time I advocated on behalf of Liu Xiaobo and Liu Xia, my colleagues expressed procedural concerns. This is counterproductive. Doing so will only antagonize China. Well, some of us are less concerned about antagonizing Chinese communist dictators. My fellow senators assured me that they have negotiated the release of many political prisoners behind the scenes. Well, that is wonderful. Then I encourage them to do so now in the few days and weeks Liu Xiaobo has ahead of him. Even so, even despite repeated Democratic objections, repeated Democratic obstructionism, ultimately the United States Senate was able to pass my bill by voice vote in the 114th Congress. And the reason at the time was evident. China's stubbornness, wrongly imprisoning a Nobel Peace Laureate, required public action to force the issue. And the end goal, it should be clear, is not merely to rename a street, but rather to use the action to shine a light on the Lius and to pressure the PRC to do the right thing. No member can explain the success of this tactic better than my good friend, Senator Grassley, the senior senator from Iowa, who led a very similar effort in 1984 to rename the street in front of the Soviet embassy after Andrei Sakharov, the famed Soviet dissident. Senator Grassley led that effort under Ronald Reagan, and when the street was renamed, it meant any time a Soviet had to write to their embassy, they had to write Sakharov's name. It meant any time you had to pick up the phone and call the embassy and say, where exactly do I find this embassy? They had to give the address and highlight the dissident. For the PRC, they do not want to highlight Liu Xiaobo because he is a powerful voice for freedom and against tyranny. Just as it worked against the Soviet Union, as Reagan demonstrated, public shaming, shining light, telling the truth can bring down the machinery of oppression, so too can public shaming, shining light, secure Dr. Liu's freedom. As we stand here today, we don't know if she is going to allow Dr. Liu to come to freedom, to live out his last days in peace, and to receive the Nobel Peace Prize that he was so justly rewarded. If she does the right thing, we can all commend that action. But if not, I am announcing my intention to continue to press this bill, to seek its passage again in this Congress, just as the Senate passed it in the prior Congress. I intend to press forward and seek passage of this bill. And if Dr. Liu is not released, if he dies in China, still under their oppression, I intend to continue to fight until the day when the street is named in front of the embassy and the Chinese communists can bow their heads in shame at their injustice. If they don't want to be publicly shamed, there is an easy path. Don't commit shameful acts. Truth has power. Sunshine and light has power. And so I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, if there is an issue that should unite us all, it is that a Nobel Peace Laureate speaking out for peace and democracy should not be wrongly imprisoned in communist China. That should bring us together, and the full force of the United States. I commend President Trump for leading on this issue, and I am hopeful that China will see its way to do the right thing. I yield the floor.